Dr. Kendall, thank you for that message and your obedience to the Holy Spirit and sensitivity to Him and bringing that word. I appreciate it. It's encouraging, and thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Blanchard. I work as a missionary in Casa Shalom orphanage in Guatemala in Central America. And while I'm talking, there'll be photos behind me. And I won't stop to talk about each of them because I just threw in a bunch of pictures of everything that's been happening in the last few months. Typically, I come back to the States every 90 days because I don't have permanent residence in Guatemala. So I come back every 90 days and just have to be here for a few days. Usually I'm here for a week or two. But the last time I was home was in March, just before COVID went crazy. And so I actually had a few flight changes before I went back to Guatemala to make it back just before the borders shut down to Guatemala. So I was shut down with our kids in Casa Shalom for the last, it's been 8 months now. So typically I come back every 90 days, and this time it's been 8 months. So I'm here also a little bit more time to make up for some of that lack of break. But in Casa Shalom, I live on campus there. I have my own little house. Casa Shalom is a really large property on the side of a mountain. And I got to stop looking at the pictures because I want to stop and talk about them now. So I live in the home with the kids. I have my own house, though, so there are no kids living in my house. But I have an office there. And for Casa Shalom, I want to run our sponsorship program, which is the major source of income for the home. I also receive any new kids that come into the orphanage. So as they come in, there's a process. All of the kids who come to Casa Shalom have been removed from their home by the equivalent of social services in Guatemala. And then the day that they're removed from the home, they go into court and have a hearing. And the judge will decide if there is a family member that they can go to, or social services starts calling us and calling homes to see who has room for them. So we get a call as kids are going into court to see if we can take them, and then when they leave the court hearing, we get the call saying they're on their way. And so when they come, I have an interview process and a cleanup process and a documentation process that I do with the kids so I can let them know what to expect in Casa Shalom, sometimes explain to them what has happened and why they're with us. And then I start the process of documenting and creating reports for our social worker and psychologist so they can start working with them for the healing that they need and working on their case so we can represent them in court and push the courts to do what we think might be in their best interest. So that is one of the jobs I do. I also run our program, Vida Independiente program, which is a program that is helping our older kids get ready to transition out of the home and be prepared for their adult life or their life independent of Casa Shalom. We do not take in children over the age of 12, sometimes 13. So the kids who are with us who are older, our current oldest child is 21 years old. So that means those kids have been with us since before they were 13, some since they were babies. Some of these pictures, I'll just say, these are some of the things that have happened within the past 8 months. So there are pictures there of doctor visits that I've taken our kids to. These ones right here are kids who have some form of epilepsy or some other condition that they're doing the EEGs for. And then you also saw some pictures of my car that was crashed while I was teaching one of our kids to drive during this shutdown also. And thanks to Cross Community, it's fixed now after many months. So with the older kids, part of that program is workshops just to teach them things like self-care, self-medication, budgeting, managing finances, looking for a job, interview process. Because if the kids have been with us for as long as they have, they're very, very protected in Casa Shalom. We keep them sort of in a bubble. They don't have phones. They don't have any technology. So they're very, very sheltered. So as you can imagine, to go from a very sheltered community to be out in the world on your own is pretty much impossible to do without a little bit of help. So the Independent Life Program, Vida Independiente, the purpose is to help prepare them for that and then help find jobs for them, get them into university or vocational study, and then help find people in the community that will pair with them, mentor them, and help ease that transition also. So along with the Independent Life Program, I'm also running a mentorship program looking for people in the church community from different churches in our area to team up and come alongside some of those kids to help ease that transition, help be part of their community outside of Casa Shalom as well. Also during the shutdown, we typically have a campus pastor in Casa Shalom who does Bible studies with the kids and Sunday morning services. And I, for the past couple of years, have been taking the kids along with me to the church that I attend in Guatemala. So the older kids I've taken in 2 phases. We go to the early service with the younger of those kids, and then the second service with the older of those kids. In Guatemala, no churches have been allowed to meet at all during the shutdown and still are not meeting. And because Casa Shalom observed strict shutdown protocols as well, our campus pastor was no longer allowed to enter the premises. So I have been preaching our Sunday morning services in Casa Shalom since March, which has been fun and interesting and blessing and a lot of pressure and a lot of work and really a great blessing and a tremendous help for my Spanish. Because we only speak in Spanish in the home. There are a few kids who are learning English in school, but it's rare that they get beyond colors and numbers and greetings. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Perhaps, where is the bathroom? So we only speak Spanish in the home. And so to preach in Spanish has been great help for me and my Spanish. So those are just some of the things that have been going on. We also, because of the shutdown, typically our children go to 5 or 6 different schools in our area, depending on their need, depending on their age. So during the shutdown, all of our schooling has moved into the home, which has also, as you can imagine, between 60 and 75 children being homeschooled with no increase in staff has been a significant challenge for us. But it's gone really well, and the kids are continuing on with their studies and have continued to turn in all of their homework on time. So God's been good to us. It's been an interesting past year, as the same as it is for you guys. Everybody's experiencing these new changes in their own and different ways, but God has been really good to Shalom. We typically have teams that come throughout the summer, every week throughout the summer, which is a huge source of income and help with the projects that need to be done in Shalom. And so, of course, no teams have been coming this year, but God has miraculously, in his amazing way, provided for everything that we've needed. So we have not gone without. And anytime we had an extra need, the ask was put out there and it was always covered. So God's been really, really good to Shalom. And it's not surprising because certainly in my experience since I've been there, I've never seen, and I personally have never experienced a need that wasn't met and in God's perfect timing and in his perfect way. And for me personally, I've experienced that. Not only do I benefit and am tremendously blessed by the support of Cross Community Church, I'm only there because Cross Community supports me financially. I'm only able to be there because of that. But also, God has just provided for me in other ways that are non-financial ways. And the companionship and friendship that I've needed since I've been there, there have been people that have come in, filled that need for companionship, and then they've left and moved back to the States, and God just knows what I need and who I need, and as they leave, someone else comes in. And so God has been really good to me and covering those needs that I wouldn't even really know how to ask for prayer for, or wouldn't necessarily know that I need that. And then I just look back and I'm like, wow, that is amazing. Those people left and this friend came in. And so God's just good. And I have experienced, since being in Guatemala more than ever, that he truly provides all of our needs according to his riches and glory. And I've experienced that in the true sense of the all of our needs, our emotional, mental, physical needs, which for me have been so much more than the financial needs even. So I'm blessed and encouraged by God's goodness and his grace and his mercy. And Dr. Kendall, you spoke to my heart when you spoke of the Holy Spirit and being sensitive to him, because I know too that there are certainly times that I have missed experiencing some of the grace of God and his goodness because I haven't heard a warning, or haven't been obedient to a warning, or haven't been obedient to a push to do something. And it's such a better place to be in when we're living in that sensitivity and obedience to the Holy Spirit, to heed the warnings and heed the encouragement to do something so that we really can see God glorified and his work be done, because I've experienced that so much myself when I've tried to push for something that I think needs to be done, or I think should be done a certain way. So often I have seen how much better it is when it is God's way and his timing, because we know how sovereign he is, but in our humanness, it's so easy to be like, but I've got this. I know how to do this. I can do this. And God has been gracious and merciful in teaching me to let him do it, to let him lead and guide. And so I just want to encourage any of you in that also I'll just second the message and the word that Dr. Kendall brought us to. Yes, be sensitive and obedient to the Holy Spirit. It's so much better. And I think that wraps it up, other than if I can just leave you with something else to pray for and partner with me in your prayers and in your heart. I have, over the last couple years, felt that especially as I've taken over the independent life program, the transition program for our older children, I've seen that there's certainly a need for more to help them in their next steps. So in Guatemala, the same as in the United States, when you turn 18, you technically age out of the system. Guatemala has allowed private homes to let older kids stay in the home, and then in Casa Shalom allows older kids to stay in the home as long as they're studying and doing what they need to be doing. I have felt for a while that there probably needs to be a little bit more for when the kids actually leave Casa Shalom, something to help them. So I have been thinking about what more we can do to help those kids transition. And so in the last years especially, I've had a desire to start a transition home, that for kids who are leaving the home have a second home to go to that would not be under the government at all, because they're technically out of the care of the system, but would be a place for them to live, to continue to learn how to budget, not pay the rent that they would need to be paying if they were out on their own, and not return to the family that they were originally taking care of, or the unsafe people that they were with before. And in this last year, I've just felt the urgency in my spirit to look more for the possibility to do that. So I just started looking at land, the possibility of building something in Guatemala that's not far from the home, so I could continue to do what I do in Casa Shalom. So I recently, in the same week that two of our children who've left the home, I call them children, they're adults, but they're kids to me. So in the same week that two of the kids who left since I've been in Casa Shalom, but they left before we started our transition program, in the same week that two of them called me with just problems, I also found piece of land with a beautiful home on it and housing and a separate cabin on it that would already be perfect housing for kids to live in, older kids to live in. And so if you would just pray with me and ask God for me to lead and guide that, my desire would be it's within 5 minutes of Casa Shalom, so my desire would be to move into that house, oversee the transition housing for the adult kids, and then do my normal job, continue with my work normal in Casa Shalom, but just from 9 to 5 instead of 24/7. And then with that, so the government is pushing for the 18-year-old kids to move out, which they've never put as much pressure as they are now. So I feel like that the Holy Spirit has been prompting me because he also knows that the government is going to start cracking down on the over 18-year-olds being in the home. And then also the government is moving towards getting kids in general out of orphanages and putting them into foster care, which is wonderful, except for there are not many families in Guatemala who can handle fostering children. So in many cases, they're put with neighbors or with family members who are still very close to the abusive family. So my desire also would be to have a home where I could foster some of those kids to save them from going back to bad family, and then manage that transition program too. But all of these desires and ideas, I leave with God, and I'm just asking him to guide that and lead that in the way that he knows will be best and should be done. So I just ask you to pray with me for that God would lead me in his perfect plans and will for what the next step should be and my involvement in it, and that everything that needs to be done financially and location-wise and planning-wise would just be led and guided by him. And yeah, so thank you for your prayers and your support and your love, and be blessed.